How many hearts have you broken with those great big beautiful eyes? Those great big beautiful eyes that tell such beautiful lies.
How many times have you kissed somebody like you kissed me then? I don't.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all ships at sea. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you an important message from the Prepared Mind Network.
I talked to a student recently at one of our woke college campuses who said she's required in every class to introduce herself and to give her pronouns. Well, I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is Monday, and what the hey is going on? The United States is acting more and more. Not the United States of America, not the place you and I live in, but United States of D.C., the federal government. It's acting more and more Nazi-like. I think we've been covering how if you're in Ukraine, you cannot criticize, well, Biden nor any part or portion of the Ukrainian government, its bureaucrats, or its elected officials. Isn't it amazing how a country that has been taken over by the CIA installs a puppet regime, does not like it when that puppet regime comes close to losing their power? Well, interestingly, those chickens have now come home to roost. Yes, they have, folks. A journalist in the United States of America named Stephen Baker, or Stephen Baker, has released a statement. He's gone public. He said the Department of Justice under Merrick Garland, you know, Garlic Marin, that guy, he got a threatening notification from them. They're going to prosecute him, is the threat, for his video report, which has accused the January 6th Washington, D.C. Capitol police officers of perjury. That is to say, they lied in their testimony about January 6th. So just like Zelensky, just like China's communist Mao, and just like Nazi Germany did, you will now be prosecuted if you attempt to reveal facts, tell the story the way you see it, notify the public of what is going on, or in any way piss off the leadership of the country. It is now becoming horrifying, folks. Absolutely horrifying what is going on. Now, that same January 6th committee, uno momento, por favor. There we go. That same January 6th committee that was lied to, and they accepted all the lies without question. The same January 6th committee edited Trump's speech, timelines, video footage to make it look like an insurrection occurred. They omitted evidence to the contrary. They didn't allow people to defend themselves or anyone to defend the January 6th protesters. It was a one-sided, lopsided political attack. Now, you doubt that there was obstruction of justice in Washington, D.C. by the police or Congress? Well, get this. A report has been released revealing the January 6th committee, which hates Trump, was populated by never Trumpers, hate Trumpers, communists, etc. They secretly deleted over 100 relevant encrypted computer files before the Republicans took over the House. If that's a fact, and it may be, I don't know, I'm not in Washington, D.C., if it's a fact, it would be nice to see Congress make sworn affidavits, obtain warrants, and arrest everyone involved in the January 6th committee and their staffers. Now, no more BS. I am getting really disgusted with the fact that Congress does nothing. And Congress, at least the House of Representatives, is controlled by the Republicans and MAGA Mike Johnson. Oh, there's procedures, John. Oh, yeah, are there? I think the procedure for arresting someone is they committed a crime. You swear an affidavit before a judge. The judge issues an arrest warrant, and that person is arrested and brought to justice, period. Now, I understand that the House of Representatives is not a tribunal. It's not a judge. It's not a judicial proceeding. But you can be arrested and go to jail for violating what is going on there. What a world, folks. What a world. Okay, I want you to know this is your show Monday through Friday, as much as it's your show on Sunday Night Live. It's just the only people invited on Monday through Friday are you guys here on the preparedmind.club and on subscribestar.com. And the interesting thing is Monday through Friday, there's no need to do super chat donations, even though it happens from time to time by sending me a CashApp or a Venmo type thing. Anyways, there's a lot going on around the world, and this is going to be a big one. Folks, get your questions, comments, thoughts into Mr. Ooman. Because it's going to be your chance here in a minute. Well, rather at the bottom of the hour. No, the top of the hour, halfway in. You're going to really get a kick out of this, folks. Understand. We are about to engage in a civil war. There's a tweet put out by none other than Alex Soros. Alexander or Alex, whatever the hell his name is, he's the son of no one less famous than George Soros himself. That's right. The man who has started non-government organizations, popularized the term, uses his private money to fund these organizations, and these organizations in turn fund terrorism, bribery, extortion, and all manner of illegal activity, both above and below and behind the boards. And for some reason, they're given prosecutorial immunity from every jurisdiction in the United States of America. On top of that, this little jackass, Alex Soros, has now threatened President Trump's life. It's in a very interesting manner, no less. But I wonder what would happen if someone did this same exact thing to Biden or Obama. I wonder. Let me tell you what he did. Alex Soros tweeted out a piece of, it was a picture with a piece of glass with a bullet hole in it. And the second part of the frame, it was a square picture, right? And down the middle, there's a line. One frame had the glass with a bullet hole through it. And the other frame was a hand holding cash. And the total of the cash added up to 47. 47. Which indicates the next president. Now, is Alex Soros saying the next president is going to be shot? Is Alex Soros saying he's going to pay somebody hard, cold cash to collect on that number? The smart money, the political pundits, the political class are all saying Trump is going to be the 47th president. Needless to say. So George Soros' son, who has been given, folks, the keys to the Soros Bank and the Soros Kingdom, he wants to play with memes, right? This meme isn't just a meme. It's a puzzle with just a couple little pieces to figure out, right? So, yeah, really, what does a picture of glass with a bullet hole in it mean? And a handful of cash with the number 47. What does that have in common, right? Even a third grader could figure that out. Shoot President Trump, you get a lot of money. Now, I don't think that necessarily that was a direct death threat, but it sure should be investigated, don't you think? Why don't we just start putting up pictures of the letter O with Bozo the Clown laying in a puddle of blood? I think we would know who that is, right? Oh, Bozo? Well, basically what this meme means is death threats, promises of violence, political assassination have now begun in 2024. It is my opinion that Antifa very soon will be turned loose. So will Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists and their supporters. Now, again, I'm going to remind everybody, Democrats are too stupid to realize they are in the crosshairs as well. And not just some Democrats, but all Democrats. Not just the weak ones, but moreover, the powerful Democrats that get the most headlines, that run to the camera. They're going to be in the crosshairs of these violent scumbags. And guess what? Alex Soros doesn't care, and he believes he is safe wearing his red shoes and hiding behind his daddy's skirt. You all know what I mean by red shoes, right? If they can do memes, can't I say Alex Soros likes to wear red shoes? Well, let's follow that up, shall we? Let's just follow that up. The next thing I want to talk about is not a news story. It's going to be about what is going on in the world. There's a movie out there called The Sound of Freedom, and it's made a big impact. I thought it would be more accusation, more indicting of the wealthy class in America. I really thought it would be that way. I thought it was going to really make a statement about Jeffrey Epstein, and it didn't. It was a good movie. It was entertaining. It jerked at the heartstring. It made you feel good at the end. You know, it did what it was promising to do as far as I was concerned, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be with respect to the American political elite, which includes mainstream media, which includes the corporate power. Now, the movie Sound of Freedom was about the trafficking of South American children. It is alarming, and it is a real issue. But I think there is more than that. The entire planet has the same issue, folks. I don't want anyone to forget what's going on, and I'm going to make a recommendation here in just a moment. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are the two most well-known traffickers. They've been exposed by lawsuits, by prosecution and convictions. It's all been made opaque, though, hard to see through those two and into the high-level politicians, into the corporate world of blackmail and intrigue, and all manner, folks, of CIA and FBI interference and the use of mainstream media has been put to work to cloud the expansive nature of Jeffrey Epstein's network and doings. But I want to promote this. There's a movie out there, and it runs along the same lines, but it's older. But I think it is more relevant to today's problem, to today's world, to today's wars, to today's politics, to today's corporations. This movie I'm going to tell you about exposes the Eastern European sex trafficking trade. And it is an A+ quality movie that exposes the military side of sex trafficking and abuse, as well as the politics and the intrigue involved in it. Now, I sure hope everyone is aware of Ukraine and the United Nations military that they're implicit and explicitly part of the sex trafficking world, and the media is hiding that also, as much as they're hiding the Jeffrey Epstein information. It's real, folks. It's real, and it's everywhere. So the movie I'm talking about is called November Man. In it is Pierce Brosnan, you know, that guy who played James Bond. It's a pre-woke movie, and it's a superb movie in every aspect and worth watching. It kind of leans on the spy genre, but it finishes with the sex trafficking message and government involvement. I think that they're hiding a lot more than they want to say and let on, folks. I recommend watching November Man. I recommend thinking not about Russians being the bad guys, but about Ukraine. Ukraine has been impoverished by Zelensky and his control. We now are witnessing massive genocidal efforts by the likes of Zelensky, his military leadership, the NATO organization, and the leadership in NATO and the European Union, which includes the United States government, as well as the European Union. There is a huge trafficking issue in Eastern Europe and any country that has been impoverished and taken over and run over by NATO and America and the United Nations. And if you think that won't happen here, folks, if shit hits the fan real bad, goes Mad Max, you're going to see a whole lot more trouble, more than you can imagine. More than you can imagine.
You got to turn your mic back on after you mute it.
Okay, how's that? That's good. We're good. All right, had to sneeze. Didn't want you guys to have to deal with another giant sneeze. This cold is kicking my ass. I want to thank everyone for the medicinal help last night. Good stuff. Now, as I was saying, in America, we're going to have some big time issues. We have not only your standard scumbag pimps in America who will turn out any woman they can, and provided they don't fear any law enforcement, they'll turn out anyone, folks. Young women, it doesn't matter. Children. And then you've got all the other, shall we say, ethnicities that have brought their culture to this country. Their culture, meaning people from the Middle East, Africa, Central and South America, where they think that it's just fine to abuse others. And so you and I, folks, are going to be in a position to hear about it and to do something about it, or not. The world has gone mad. It's gone insane. It's kind of a giant what the hell is happening? And it's happening right in front of us, and we aren't right now allowed to do anything about it. All right, now I want to switch gears with you a little bit, folks. I want to get into the world of sports on the Prepared Mind channel. Get this. Golfer Haley Davidson has won the women's tournament in Florida, increases the chances of becoming an LPGA qualifier. Yep, becoming pro. The only concern here for most people is that Haley Davidson is a transgender man. Haley Davidson has a penis. Imagine being almost as good as a man and actually being a real pro as a pretend woman. So attention, real women, have you had enough of this shit yet? Folks, whether this is a law, whether this is putting pressure on private organizations like the LPGA or a corporation like Coca-Cola. Remember, Coca-Cola went off the rails a few years ago and started telling their own people to be less white. Unfucking believable. Well, I quit watching pro sports. Long time ago, basketball, football, baseball, golf. Don't even watch it anymore. It's not worth it. These people are absolutely nuts. Nuts, I tell you, nuts. And they're killing themselves. Get this, folks. Get this. They're killing themselves. The sports and other three-letter organizations like ABC, CBS, NBC, and FOX. Well, NBC News, folks, has announced massive layoffs. That's right, one of the largest broadcast networks, legacy network, mainstream media, NBC. They pissed off their union by saying, hey, we're going to lay off a bunch of people. So essentially, the union is mad. And I'm going to paraphrase their mentality. You have to keep all of us until the business fails from the weight of unneeded laborers. Now, I thought the union was the other way, where senior card holders got to get priority and have a job, meaning screw younger union members. It's almost a contradiction in communist thinking there, but oh, wait, yeah, that's right, communist thinking. But the upshot to all of this is not anything to do with unions, but the fact that NBC News is having to lay off people. Sports Illustrated laid off a shit pile of people. I think they're done. The woke people are getting cleaned up, folks. They're cleaning themselves up. From private business to government being exposed, yeah. Even in Europe, you know, where the Euro trash likes to be socialist. Well, guess what Germany is threatening to do? Well, first off, there is the Alternative for Deutschland, basically German libertarians. There's a second party that is also very much freedom-oriented. They have like 5 parties or 6 parties or maybe 7 parties in Germany, you know, but there's, I think, 5 major parties. Anyways, the big one is joining up with others. They're considering exiting the European Union. Dexit. Remember Brexit when Britain left? Well, now there's basically Dexit. So the Alternative for Germany, their leader since 2022, Alice Weidel, is sending a clear message to the German people who want, better standards of living, lower energy costs. How about higher wages and better jobs? And to rid their country via deportation, all the worthless illegals that have invaded their homeland. Starting to sound a little Trumpish, starting to sound a little freedom-oriented. Well, it's true. So the current government in power has tried passing some shitty laws to stop them. And the AfD party came out and said it is the party that stands for enforcing this country's laws. And folks, if Germany leaves the European Union will disintegrate and become bankrupt and fall to a chaotic organization. Because the German economy is the muscle of Europe. It holds up the rest of the nations and keeps it together. They need the countries that actually produce. They need them. But Germany is so big. And they've already crippled the European Union and Germany with their laws. But this is to let you know that people are fighting back. They've had it. They've had it. The people of Europe have even had it. They've had so much socialism, so much destruction, so much, rape of their country and rape of their women that they've had it. I wonder if France will even go so far as to deport all the scum from there. I sure hope so, folks. It's going to be a wild ride. Now, Trump is out there. He picked up a great portion of Ron DeSantis's support in the polls. What does that mean? Well, the idea was, well, you know, those guys supporting DeSantis were never Trumpers. Turns out that wasn't completely true. They just liked DeSantis. Not all of them went over to Trump, but a good portion of them. So it wasn't a big boost to Nikki Haley. Well, Trump took the stage in Rochester and in New Hampshire, right? And I wanted to say this. In my lifetime, and probably the entire nation, there has never been a higher level of enthusiasm for an American presidential candidate this far away from an election. 9 months away from an election, folks, and people are lining up by the thousands in winter freezing weather that is killing people who have decided to make living on the streets their life. And in addition to that, there has never been such a need for the return of our American liberties, to demand them from the government, that the government surrender any claim they have to our property, our rights, our wealth, and our country. I want to let you all know it is now go time for the political election phase of SHTF 2024. It's time, folks. It is now time. Where are we at? I got a few more minutes. Great. Because I've got some more for you. The media. Let's see, I talked about political control swinging. I've talked about corporations losing their shit. We talked about organizations losing their power, these ridiculous unions. Well, the mainstream media is sniveling and whining like a bunch of bitches because they had Davos, the World Economic Forum, and the chief editor is sniveling. That's right, the Wall Street Journal, their chief editor is sniveling because they lost control in Davos about what was being talked about. And this is a quote. We were the gatekeepers. We owned the facts as well. So what happened? What happened? Well, fuck it. I'll just sneeze. They lost control of the narrative. How does that happen? Ask yourself this. How does the mainstream media, which has 5 major news networks, plus many ancillary networks, plus newspapers, plus radio, plus websites, how do they lose control? How do they lose absolute control of what was discussed? Oh, man. Pardon me, I had to get straight there. The way they lost control, folks, is you. You, and all of us. The media doesn't like accountability. So that people said, we're not going to listen to you anymore. Instead, they showed up on channels like this. Bigger channels, smaller channels, mega channels. And they wanted to get information. Now, I heard this description. Understand this. Before the internet, you had to have a funnel this big, huge funnel to catch all the news you could. And then you would catch, whatever you could, little bits, and you'd have to run it through a filter. Right? Well, today, it's the opposite. You only need to catch, right, a little bit of what's out there. There's so much news available, so much information, right? So rather than having a big net, you need a big filter. I think that's how I should phrase it. Yeah. Instead of a big net or a big funnel to catch it all, Now you can't help but get hit every which way with news, and you just need a good filter. Well, we used to rely on the mainstream media to provide us, right? Filter the news and give us what really matters. So now you and I, we go to sources we trust because there's so much news out there, and we only trust what we want. And none of that trust is placed in NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, or CNN. We don't trust them, so we don't even go there. And I think that's what's happened with Davos. The Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the WAPO, the New York Times, they're all absolute news sewage. Not even fit to use their paper rags to wipe bungholes. Consequently, the mainstream media has lost the narrative. They don't get to tell us what to think and believe and what we need to see about Davos. We got to see the wacko real witches casting spells. We got to listen to Javier Milei of Argentina tell off the World Economic Forum, the socialists, talk about what a bunch of murderers they are and how they destroy people's lives and the wealth of generations of citizens. How they haven't learned from thousands of years and the last 100 years. He chewed them up one side and down the other and made them look like fucking idiots. We all saw that. We heard about disease X. And so we know what they're up to. And we don't care what they have to say. Now, Emma Tucker is the chief editor at the Wall Street Journal. She's the one that's all upset that no one trusts them and the legacy media anymore. Right? So Emma, while in Switzerland, complained about the lack of trust people have in the Western mainstream media. I don't know. Is it all the lies? It's quite interesting, folks. You know, she called herself, she said that they, the mainstream media, were gatekeepers and that they owned the facts. This is what she said here, folks. Nowadays, people can go to all sorts of different sources for the news, and they're much more questioning about what we're saying. So it's no longer good enough for us just to say, this is what happened, or this is the news we have to explain. Almost like explain our working. Amazing, folks. So readers expect to know how they come up with their news. They want to know where they get their stories from. That's right. We have been more inquisitive now than ever. Right? We've lifted up the hood and we're inspecting the engine to see how it works. It never used to be that way. They didn't have to explain. The mainstream media, when it's transparent, we get to see who is giving them the stories. And we discovered with a little investigation that the news they give us always comes from official sources, not from, right, where the news was made or happened. It's always official sources. In other words, what the government wants us to believe. And I think we've all had enough of that shit, don't you? I would think so. Okay. Let's move on to the second half of the show. It is now time for, you guessed it, the inner circle. Boy, I tell you, it feels like my head is going to cave in. I don't get it. I can breathe through my nose, but it feels like I can't, like my head's going to explode. It's an old-fashioned cold, folks. Not COVID. No, because this is honey, lemon, cinnamon, and Scotch whiskey and water. It is a hot toddy, and I can taste all the ingredients. Woo! All right, Mr. Ooman. I don't know what's going on out there, but let's talk about it. Name redacted. Addresses Ooman, but I guess I'll address it for Ooman. He says, I came across a video here today, How to Stop a Cultural Revolution by James Lindsay. It's very advisable for you and John to consider checking it out. Very good insight and would be useful to all. This will get you, he explains, dialectic warfare and narrative warfare. I would love to see that video. I really would. If I'm not familiar with the information, it's something I'm always willing to learn. This is interesting, folks. We are in an information war. We are in a psychological war. We are in very much a war of propaganda, a war of lies, a war of facts, a war with military, a war with children, a war with our money, a war of education. We have a war between the races, a war between the religions, a war between social status, and a war amongst, shall we say, wealth status. How do you stop it? The way you stop any violence, with facts. And if that doesn't do it, if ignorance prevails, then it will have to come to violence. Ultimately, folks, the real decision is might makes right. Might makes right. That's how fights are decided. I mean, you don't go to a boxing match to watch them decide who is a better boxer by playing checkers. If you know what I'm saying to you. Anyways, name redacted. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Uman, for throwing that up. A lot of information out there. If you would, after the show, if a link was included, that would be good to have sent to me. I'm wanting to learn everything there is, and we're going to have, folks, understand this. Ultimately, wars are decided with physical violence. Above that is persuasion, psychology, information, right? These more, how do we say, opaque forms of control. Psychology, education over years, brainwashing, all of those higher levels. If you can't break through those higher levels, we keep dropping down to the most basic instinct, and that is physically destroy your enemy. If no amount of conditioning or education or intellect will solve the dilemma. Thank you very much, Mr. Uman. Let's do this. Let's go to the next question. Concept, thought, or idea. We have Roy, the crypto boy. He says, people are not happy and they want change. About 42% of the global population are in countries with elections. El Salvador's president next month may be among a few reelected. Many changes likely. Thoughts? Well, people are not happy. But that is as true today as it was, shall we say, 16 years ago or 160 years ago. Remember Obama's first run at being elected? His motto was hope and change. Who did he appeal to? Young people, anti-war types. Where were the transgenders and the homosexuals during that campaign? Nowhere to be seen. But he was appealing to the youths, the millennials, who were starting to become a political force to deal with. Republicans at the time of Obama were disgusted with John McCain, 8 years of Bush, the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, which violates our rights. We're disgusted and sick in it. Yeah, but of course now the Democrats want war. And they want you to surrender your rights. Back then it was, be tolerant of us, be tolerant of the left. Free speech is for everyone. Where are we at now? People want change. It's going to come down to who is most enthusiastic, who is most convincing. You know, have the people who vote Democrat, have they learned that every time they vote Democrat, and they win that their lives become more difficult. Under Obama, listen very carefully. Under Obama, student loans were handed out like sheets of acid at a rock festival. Everyone take some. Everyone have a good time. Build, get your education. Take 8 years to get a 4-year degree that is absolutely worthless. The single largest asset, that is to say, debt that has to be paid back, owned by the federal government, is student education, student loans. Where is that education paying us off, folks? It's not, because it's not education. People want change. People want change. So what change is going to fix things? Once again, I wish all of these idiot kids would listen to the president of Argentina, who almost sounded like he was educated in an Austrian school of economics with Ayn Rand as the philosophy teacher. Spoke of libertarianism, freedom, and how it creates prosperity. And he spoke eloquently. Of course, it was a prepared speech, but it made sense, and it was undeniable. You could deny it, but you would have to be a fucking idiot to do so. That's the world we live in. Now, El Salvador's president, as mentioned by Roy the Crypto Boy, has looked up at America and been, essentially, as far as I'm concerned, he has shamed me as an American, that in El Salvador, they're more interested in their liberties and freedom of speech, than the federal government in the United States, which is trying to shut down free speech and criticism of itself and their policies. I'm sure El Salvador is going to re-elect their president unless the socialists manage to steal it. But I think all of Latin America and South America, whether it's Latin or not, they're looking at Argentina saying, holy shit. They elected a libertarian who is cutting bureaucracy. And he also, folks, attacked feminism and other woke ideology as destructive and pointless for everyone. We've got changes coming, you bet. And we have people. And this, I think, is a foregone conclusion, because people on the left and people on the right politically are saying the same thing. No matter who wins, no one's going to believe it. No matter who loses, they will not accept it. No matter what happens after our 2024 election, there is going to be violence. This is it. This is it. Anyways, thank you, Roy the Crypto Boy. Moving along, who do we have up next? We have Chin Music. He says this: for now, the Supreme Court is allowing Border Patrol to remove the Texas razor wire. Is that the Supreme Court, or is that a federal court or a federal appeals court? Very quickly, please get me the answer to that so I can speak to it a little more intelligently. I saw the news headline because I knew you wanted to talk about it. I didn't read further. I have an opinion about what should be going on. I really do, and I think this opinion should be followed by the leadership in Texas. Governor Abbott sat on his ass for 3 fucking years and allowed these Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans, Africans, Middle Easterners, Russians, etc., infiltrate their country, come across Mexico. Fox reported the Supreme Court of Texas. Supreme Court of the United States. Okay, that would be a preliminary injunction against what is going on in Texas. Until they hear it fully, that's my guess. But here's the deal. Texas should respond instantly and tell the Supreme Court, fill out papers at the Supreme Court saying the United States government aka you bitches up in DC, have a duty, not a fiduciary duty, but a federal executive or law enforcement duty to protect the border, a military duty, and you are not fulfilling it. Therefore, the state of Texas is having to assume self-preservation, insert its sovereignty over a defunct, out of control, weak, and shall we say ultimately, they're ultimately intentionally disregarding their duties, which I think is a fucking crime. It's treason. What they need to do, okay, so the U.S. government, folks, will not guard the fucking border. They won't do their job and stop illegal immigration. But they will show up and cut the barbed wire that Texas put in place to allow more illegal infiltration, invasion, and attack on our nation. That's what the Supreme Court wants to allow. See, I think that there are a bunch of pseudo-intellectual eggheads in the Supreme Court. They're pretending not to see the fucking forest because there's a pine needle in the way. The question they're looking at is, does Texas have a right to do this? And so they examine it with a magnifying glass, this fucking pine needle. Like, oh yeah, that looks like a pine needle. It looks like the federal government should have full authority here. And they're not seeing the fucking forest of invasion in front of them because they've got a magnifying glass and they're examining one little piece of this lawsuit. Does the state of Texas have a right to put up barbed wire? Well, what justification would they have for taking such an outlandish action? It would be the complete disregard of responsibility and duty by the Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, and Biden himself. What if the federal government was down there kidnapping children? Would we just sit back and go, oh, well, it's at the border, so the Border Patrol can do what they want because they're sovereign, because they're the federal government. And the Supremacy Clause allows them to do whatever the fuck they want within 25 miles of the border. Or would Texas look at that and go, you're not going to fucking kidnap children? Let's take a look at Washington, D.C., January 6, 2021. What if there were a bunch of children on the steps of Congress? Children under the age of 10. Hundreds of them standing around with little signs that said, protect us from illegal immigrants. And what if the DC police started attacking children? And then they went around and arrested the children and kidnapped the children and hid the children from the parents. Would we have any justification at that point for doing something like protecting the children and freeing them from control? So let me ask you this. Think about this. What's the difference between free American adults and free American children? They're all living beings. They all have rights. They have the same rights, except children may not exercise some rights till they're over 18 or 21, guns and alcohol. But understand this, there's no difference. Everyone has a right to breathe and to be free and to travel and to protest, children or adults. Yet we allowed, as Americans, the capture of thousands of Americans and thrown in prison and held without bail, bond, without due process of law. Yet we don't go and rescue the adults because they're adults and we're like, fuck you, you're on your own. But if you did it to children, would we be outraged? Sure, we'd be outraged. If the government did that to children, would we go gather arms and say, the fuck you will, and take them back with law enforcement being waylaid and shot in the process because of children? Whose children are being victimized right now by Joe Biden? Just because you're not seeing it, folks. American children, they're being assaulted. They're being kidnapped. They're being raped. They're being murdered. They're being put in harm's way They're having their social services blocked. They're having their food supply affected. American children are having their quality of lives destroyed bit by this invasion. A 3% population invasion, folks. That's more people, far more people that are in the U.S. military. 10 million people have invaded this fucking country. And we're supposed to pretend like it's cool, and the Supreme Court is looking at that fucking pine needle and wondering if it came from a tree. Can they justify their power by staring at this fucking pine needle instead of looking at the forest, folks, of pine needles? The invasion of 10 million people pouring across the border and sucking up food, resources, hotel rooms, houses, even schools. Ah, that's right. Children are being kicked out of schools to make homes for these invaders. And the government, federal, state, and local are just playing along like it's fucking cute. Stealing from children, American children. I'm fucking pissed. I'm tired of playing these fucking games. I am not saying violence needs to happen. I'm just saying that will be the ultimate decider. Once again, might will make right. And I would put a whole lot more money on the people with rifles than Joe Biden and any F-16s he may have. Mr. Uman, we got some more questions, comments. Red Arrow Tinker checks in and says, hey, he says, have you read about Pfizer purchasing a company called Segan? John hasn't spoken of it, and he's usually the first to report such things. I believe Segan was purchased back in December. And Uman says, I believe that's the company that produces cancer treatments for blood-related cancers, which is leukemia. Segan or Seagen. I haven't reported it because I think it's a small piece. It's a small piece. We have some very big names that people understand and associate very clearly with the Jim Jones juice. But perhaps your thinking, Red Arrow Tinker, is this. How would it be if blood cancer treatments were flooded with, or they had mRNA components added to the blood cancer treatment? I think that's what you might be pointing to. I don't trust any of these fuckers anymore. I really don't. I don't like the fact that Seagen or any company that has treatments that actually work are being compromised by companies that are willing to kill people. Uman says, purchase the solution to the problem you created. Here's the deal. Here's the deal, folks. Leukemia or blood cancer is very successfully treated, especially in children. I don't know if the Jim Jones juice cancer that's being caused is necessarily leukemia. It very well could be. We're at risk now. We're at risk because we're fighting a government. We're fighting communism. We're fighting fruitcakes. We're fighting medical people, educational people. We're fighting government at every level, local, state, federal. We're fighting for our right to live. That's what's coming. That's what's coming. And the fight, a lot of it's going to be physical. Are you going to be able to trust your hospital in an era where people are being shot on the street and you have to go to the hospital to get stitched up? How do you know you won't be injected with some of this shit? You know how you're going to know? You have a, shall we say, patriot observing all operations and procedures, and getting the names of doctors and medical personnel who are treating the person. And this patriot should be educated as much as possible in the realm of medical treatments and procedures. And doctors and nurses that decide they're going to go over and above the need to help someone medically, violate their Hippocratic oath, and cause someone to die intentionally by giving him one of these unnecessary pharmaceutical cures. Oh, there's going to be hell to pay, folks. There's going to be hell to pay. Remember, half the doctors and more than half the nurses are more than willing to give you medication that is deadly. Red Arrow Tinker says the JJJ has been found to be causing turbo cancers. Yes, it is. I reported that yesterday, talking about how 2024 is being projected to be the biggest cancer explosion in American history. CGen is the top producer of turbo cancer treatments. How about that shit right there? Like I said, here it comes. Thank you, Red Arrow Tinker. Mr. Uman, where are we going next? Name redacted. Says they have made a mess and want the destruction. Put Big Orange back in and they get to blame him. You bet they're going to blame Trump. They're going to blame Big Orange, Orange Man bad. They're going to blame him for violence in the streets. They're going to blame him for left-wing lunatics losing their shit, whether it's BLM, Antifa, or the LGBTQIA plus suicide mass murder killers. They're going to blame Trump for the economy, for inflation, for the failure of banks and the banking system. They're going to blame him for everything. Folks, we're going to have a nuclear weapons incident in 2024, 2025. My only concern or question at this point regarding that topic is how much, how many, how wide, and how far it spreads before the world goes, oh shit, that wasn't such a smart move to start. I hope you have potassium iodide pills. Go on Amazon and buy potassium iodide pills. Thank you, name redacted. Thank you, Mr. Uman. I know we're running out of time. I know we got a lot of questions. I've got more too, but I'm going to hold off at 1 hour. Chin Music says, BWS, the men in my profession are cowards. I posted about this on my Instagram, and fellow pros DM'd me telling me to stop, demanding him to stop. I told them to demand it publicly so I could call them out as cowards. Chin Music, I wish there were more people.
Chin was referring to the trannies in women's sports on that comment. Oop. Okay.
Man, get back on here, man. You can't ditch me like that.
Okay.
Men.
Now we're in the right position.
Okay, very good. The men in his profession, a sports profession, are afraid to step up and say these fruitcakes who pretend to be women need to be kicked out or into the right gender. Correct. And that they're demanding privately to tell them to stop, but they won't come out and do it publicly because he'll call them coward. Fuck yeah, Chin. If you're willing to do that, now you have to understand, and I know you do, that there's risk to that, isn't there? In every profession, in every walk of life, in your family, the moment you stick your neck out and say that is wrong, that is immoral, you face possible retribution, attempts at it. Man, in your world, what do you see? Any of that?
I don't see any of that in my world, no. And
you live in a pretty macho fucking world.
There's not a whole lot of LGBS in the manufacturing industry.
Well, not in, shall we say, smaller corporate specialized stuff. But if you had, say, an administrative division that had 50 or more people, do you think you would be seeing it?
pretty sure that you probably would be, because I mean, you see it everywhere. I'm sure if you go to General Motors or a Chrysler plant or whatever, I'm sure their HR department is dealing with plenty of that.
Yeah. The corporation or the company I'm working with right now on a professional basis is building and developing a larger employee base. Consequently, there's been discussion about the need for human resources, and I am ready to go back to battle.
Oh,
now,
boy.
Where I'm at, we don't have the California see you next Tuesdays. We don't have that attitude. It's not prevalent in the South. But it only takes one of them, and it's on.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes one of them, and I'm going to fucking go after them pronto. I won't tolerate it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even on a small company, smaller companies like mine here. I mean, it took one little millennial guy who got all butthurt over not being able to use his phone while running the machines instead of inspecting the parts that he was making wrong all frickin' day long.
Right.
To go and file a complaint with OSHA. And, the week after he got fired, OSHA's in here, never been in here in 12 frickin' years. And they're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And, it's easy for one idiot to cause you a world of problems.
Yeah. Yep. And in, where these trannies are really showing themselves, women's sports, women's academics, where else? In the workplace where you can have these limp-wristed little fruitcakes run around and demand that people call them by the appropriate pronouns. And if they don't, it's a hate crime. And they start pushing for that shit.
And don't forget beauty pageants and prisons.
Fucking beauty pageants, prison, the military. Oh, yeah. It's funny because I think they're a bunch of fruitcakes, but it's still a serious problem. I left California because I'd finally had enough of it. That shit crept up to extreme Northern California, where I had a bunch of hypocritical, left-wing lying bitches trying to destroy people's lives with their bullshit. Yeah. I hear you, Chin Music. Fuck. Call them out, but, man, be prepared to reap the whirlwind from these freaks. I need to get that little video of that fruitcake punching and kicking the boxing bagu man.
Yeah.
and put it up here. That's how they want to fight. Ee.
Well, you know what? It comes down to what we were talking about after the zoo yesterday. Everybody's so scared to speak up about it. But then once you start speaking up about it, all of a sudden all these other people say, hey, he's speaking up about it, so maybe I can speak up about it too. And all of a sudden you get all these people that are no longer scared to speak up about it, and you find out who the true majority is here and what the real feel in the country is.
That's just
and it. I think, and even though this is a smaller channel and we have a limited reach and only reach a few thousand people with the shows and stuff, that spreads. I mean, if you talk to 1,000 people and they talk to their friends about it and their friends talk to some friends about it, I mean, it's exponential. And that's what needs to happen. They've scared everybody into, being outed and ostracized and canceled or whatever, if you speak up against the narrative. But, I mean, look what happened with Bud Light.
Bud Light lost it. They pissed off everyone.
Yeah, they pissed off both sides.
Coca-Cola, I called them at their headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, and chewed their fucking asses off. When you stop being afraid of what other people think about you, you're going to lose some friends. You're going to lose some family, and it might be painful. I have in my family a very powerful and painful example of what you can lose. Fuck it. I'm not going to quit being an American, quit being a patriot, quit being a fucking man in order to satisfy the whims of a bunch of hypocritical, blow in the wind pussies, because that's what they are.
You may lose a friend or a family member over some of this stuff, but you'll gain the respect of tenfold that many people.
And that's what my mission is.
Yeah.
My mission is to not allow this shit. I don't want to be everyone's fucking friend, man.
Nope.
You know how much time I have just to be friends with you. It's like pulling fucking teeth to get 5 fucking minutes in life.
Yeah, I hear you. But
so, you know, I don't want to be everyone's friend. I want to be free.
no,
I want you to be free. I want everyone here to be free.
It's not the quantity of friends, it's the quality of friends.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we need to quit being afraid of what other people think. And Chin Music, I think, is a great example. He shared a lot of stories with us here publicly as well as privately. We need a lot more guys, and I'm glad Chin Music chimes in on a daily basis and lets us know that.
Oh, and Chin Music had one more parting comment for you. Okay,
what do we got? The pressure from a cold is much worse when you have a big brain. I tell you. This is a cold. I haven't had a nasty cold in, 5 or 6 fucking years now? This is a pretty nasty one. Heidi said, you get cold, you get sick every year. Well, I'll get an itty-bitty teeny, sniffle or some shit. But this is a nasty one.
Oh, this is the second one, and it's a different one than you had a couple weeks ago.
It's a different. The other one was, it was weird. It was, my sinuses drained out. It was the weirdest damn thing. And then I had just like this lingering fucking cough, which is just annoying. But this is an actual head cold. And did I get tested for COVID? No fucking way.
Can't have COVID if you don't get tested for it.
That's right. Jeez, I think I just have a cold. When I take, let me cover up the name brand. When I take cough and cold medicine, guess what? It fucking works. I go to sleep. The pain goes away. I remember when Cerveza first came out, I went down to Rite Aid and I bought, I think, 6 bottles total, 3 nighttime, 3 daytime. Because I was like, okay, we're all going to get sick. Fine. But, cold medicine.
You deal with it and you move on. There's nothing you can do about it. You're going to get sick.
Oh, man. I tell you. Anyways, yeah, you're right, Mr. Uman. It is. We've gone past the 1 hour mark, though.
All right. Well, you guys all have a good night, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Indeed. Chance Favors, the prepared mind is yours. Speak up. Speak American. Speak freedom. Speak liberty. Chance, folks. Chance Favors. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. And it is incredible that cities, county sheriffs, and even states are saying, arm yourselves. Carry your weapon. You have a right to protect yourself. Be an American. Godspeed, Semper Fi.